Hello, everybody. I'm Ami Kassar from EO Philadelphia, and I'm so pleased to have on with me today my dear friend Sarah Dray from EO Israel. Sarah and I have become really close since the events of October 7th, and we've been doing a lot of work together. And the purpose of our chat today is not to talk about the specifics of the war or politics of the war or the logistics of the war or this or that or the other. The purpose of the talk today is to try really dig in and understand Sarah's journey and the feelings and the emotions of an Israeli woman entrepreneur, what she's been going through since October 7th, and the ups and the downs and the struggles, and just to really try dig in and understand. So, Sarah, I know this is not easy for you, and thank you for being open and vulnerable and willing to take the time.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So maybe we can just take a minute back for our listeners and you can just share a little bit about your history and how you got to Israel and when you moved to Israel.
So I grew up in a Jewish community in Florida, South Florida, and Israel was always, talked about and important, and it was a big focal point in my upbringing. Pictures on the wall of family visiting Israel. My first trip was in 10th grade. I fell in love actually with the country right away, and I knew that one day I really did want to spend my life here. And then after high school, I planned on coming to Israel for just a gap year, after which I couldn't leave, and I enrolled in law school at Bar-Ilan University. Did law school in Hebrew. That was a huge challenge. And became licensed as an attorney. Shortly after that, I started a translations company. And I've been here for more than half my life already.
Is your family still in the US?
Yeah, I have my brother, my dad, a sister in Florida. My mom and her husband are actually moving to Israel from Spain this year. So that's really exciting. That was like a long time dream of mine to have my family closer. And I have a sister here in Jaffa. Yeah.
And Sarah, are you married? Do you have a family?
I'm married. I have two gorgeous stepdaughters, and yeah, thank God, settled down.
When did you get married?
Exactly a year ago.
Ah,
Three. Yeah.
okay. And Sarah, when did you join EO?
I joined EO last summer, so I haven't been with EO for a year yet, but it's actually been unbelievably impactful. I got to meet you among other very wonderful people. But yeah, it's made a humongous impact on me personally and on my career already in under a year.
Sarah, tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
So I'm an attorney by trade, by profession. I studied law here in Israel, and Israel being such an international country with so many cross-border transactions has a huge need for translation services. So I identified that need pretty quickly as an English-speaking lawyer and decided to start this company in service of that need. There's a huge shortage of native English speakers who understand the Israeli legal system and really have the skill set to convey the documents in Hebrew and in English. So I started this company 15 years ago. Since then, it's grown to serve all major language pairs. So it's not only Hebrew English, but obviously Arabic, French, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, Russian. We really run the whole gamut. And we focus on legal, but we do also provide translation services in business, financial, marketing, and other areas.
And Sarah, what did your business look like before October 7th?
So before October 7th, we had, and we still do have big goals, but we expected that we would be able to reach them. We were, growing at a great pace, and the team was growing. We'd recently hired a new project manager, which was a big accomplishment. And it was definitely smoother sailing before October 7th.
How many employees were you, or are you contractors? How does it work?
Yeah, so we have 4 employees on staff. We have someone in marketing and 2 project managers, myself. And then we have about 50 translators that we work with regularly, month to month. Yeah,
And are most of those in Israel or all over the world?
all over. I would say about half are in Israel, those translators.
Got it.
Yeah.
So Sarah, tell us about waking up on October 7th.
Uh, um, I always like remember first October 6th because I had such a great day on October 6th, and we were so unaware of what was coming. I mean, it was a Friday, so that's our day off in Israel, and I had the music blasting, and I was cooking and getting ready for the weekend, and really just having a great time. We had a family dinner, and we had no idea what was coming. Um, I think about that day a lot, like before everything really changed. Um, October 7th, we woke up at 6:30 in the morning to a siren with my husband and I, and we were confused, but sirens happen. I mean, they happen. They happen a lot. So we went into the bomb shelter and we heard booms. We were surprised to hear booms like all the way where we are in the center. And we left the bomb shelter at the appropriate time, turned on the TV, and it was the worst day of our lives. We were watching the news and you could hear families in the South who were calling into the news like live and begging for help. You could hear terrorists, like it was just, we were in complete shock and horror. And that shock lasted for at least a month. I mean, it was really hard to function. I mean, I think we're still in shock. I think we're still really in the thick of it. But yeah, really traumatic, terrible day to realize what was unfolding around us.
Did you lose any friends up at the music festival? Did you know anyone who was there?
My tennis coach was there. She made it out. I saw her on Friday that she was at a party or a festival, and then when I realized what was happening, I knew that she was there. There's a girl, Eden Yerushalmi, who is still held hostage by Hamas, and she's my manicurist sister. So that was like my closest, I think, connection. And I think about her. I mean, I think about her all day, every day, actually. I can't believe that she is still there.
Yeah. So Sarah, there was were your step kids with you on October 7th?
They weren't with us that day, but there was a time, I think there was about 2 months after October 7th where we were really under heavy rocket fire. So they were here during plenty of sirens. And actually, it was horrible to see like the look of terror on their faces as they ran to bomb shelters. Like the 5-year-old was truly terrified every single time. And the 9-year-old was working on fractions in school. And I remember she drew a pie chart and she did like 98% and 2%. And she said, this is the chance that we'll get hit by a rocket, right? It's 2% out of this. And I said, no, 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 no. We're not getting hit by rockets. Everything's going to be okay. They were terrified. There was one rocket there was rockets that landed around here. One hit a house within a kilometer, really took down the whole roof of us. So we heard a lot of really loud, really scary booms. And looked out the window, you could see rockets.
How
So
did you and your husband parent through that? How did you try and explain it to them?
it's really difficult to kind of walk that fine line. You don't want to scare them. You know, sometimes we try to like be positive. So they'll say things that like, you wouldn't, I don't know, they'll say like Hamas is our enemy and they want to kill us and stuff like that. And you're kind of like, well, yeah, yes, but it's really weird to explain like war and enemies and this kind of stuff to kids. We just tried to reassure them that they're safe and that, I don't know, that we're doing the best we can, that we have a strong country, that we have a strong army, that they don't have to worry or be scared, and at the same time teach them that if they're outside when there's a siren, they need to get on the floor, cover their hands with their head, hide behind a car. So it's really like a balancing act. We're trying to keep them feeling safe, but also aware of what they need to do and what the reality is.
And did you have them at home for 2 months? They were going to school or not going to school?
Yeah, school was canceled for a while. We had them home for a while. Like we share custody, so their mom also. So they went back and forth, and uh, it was it was a while before they went back to school. Also, they live half the time in a neighborhood that you have to drive through an Arab neighborhood to get to their neighborhood. So there was a lot of tension. There was a terrorist who tried to break into their neighborhood and got neutralized at the gate. So they're on edge. It's on edge.
5 and 9, right?
Yeah, 5 and 9.
So tell us a little bit about your husband. Does he work? Is he in the army? Was he in the army? Tell us about him.
He works. He owns a gym and he's a trainer. Um, Interestingly, he didn't feel a very strong impact at work. I personally lost the capacity to exercise for a while. I didn't have the energy, but for a lot of people, it's very therapeutic. And people really felt the need to get out and, you know, feel good and do something that I guess feels positive thing. So he stayed busy after the breakout of the war. A lot of his cousins are in the army. I mean, literally heroes. One of his cousins went down on October 7th. He has 4 daughters, one newborn, and he said, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get killed, but this is what I have to do. And he went to Kibbutz Nirim, and he was there for 2 days fighting, like literally fighting the terrorists. Thank God he's okay, but there's no shortage of heroes in this country, so we're related to some of them. Yeah.
So what a balancing act. Your country's at war. You've got 2 young children to try and, I don't know if you can even reassure them, but figure out how to communicate with them and how to try as best as you can make them feel safe. You're exhausted. You're running to bomb shelters. There's all this chaos around you, and you're also trying to run a business. How do you do all that?
It was chaos. Like now that you're saying, running to bomb shelters, I'm remembering having meetings and on Zoom and being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I have to go, running to bomb shelter, leaving someone like shocked on the other end of the line. For me, what was most difficult was the survivor's guilt. It's such a dark place to be, and we're really feeling the pain of every single person who's held hostage, all the soldiers, all their wives. One of my employees, her husband was fighting in Gaza while she was 9 months pregnant, and my other employee's brother was there. So really, it was hitting so close to home, and it was so heavy and so hard to function and so hard to show up with positivity and energy and trying to work when like the world is kind of feels like it's falling down around you. And then you realize you're one of the lucky ones. Like there's this survivor's guilt where it's like you don't want to complain because there's so much happening, but at the same time it's so hard to function. So for me that was really difficult. I kind of gave myself the permission to have bad days, and I tried to be productive. Being an EO was really helpful because we formed a group of people who created amazing initiatives, and when work was really, really dead, that gave me a lot of purpose and was really meaningful for me. And I really felt like I was doing something positive, bringing a little bit of light. So it was a balancing act. I think it still is.
I think it probably will be for a long time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting when you talk about survivor's guilt, and this comparison it's a bad analogy because the events are totally different, but I'll share it anyway. a couple of years ago, or a tornado just hit our neighborhood really hard. And by some dumb luck, the worst thing that happened at our house was the jacuzzi top blew off. But within 100 yards down the street, there were a couple of hundred houses that were just completely destroyed. And I had such survivor's guilt. All I would do is go on the weekends and try to help people and this and that. It's the only way I could try to reconcile it. So that, yeah, of course I was better off than they were, but that feeling of sort of like, why me, was just really kind of,
Yeah.
They're making me remember it. So.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not okay. Like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay with what's happening. I'm not okay. I'm not functional, but I'm okay. So who am I to complain? I mean, I don't have a husband in Gaza. I haven't, lost a family member. So that's been hard to struggle with.
I have a great aunt in Jerusalem who at one point had 9 grandchildren or in Gaza, grandchildren or grandchildren's spouses, right?
Yeah.
And I spoke to her, and I'll never forget, she decided she would communicate on WhatsApp with her kids in Gaza, but she turned off the news.
Yeah, I don't watch the news anymore either.
her, her own mental health, she said, I can't watch the news.
Yeah.
It's too exhausting for me. And I thought that there was an important lesson in that. So.
Yeah, social media is hard too. You go on Instagram and you see people are spreading lies and everyone's agreeing, and it's like it would be walking into a lion's den to try to straighten out the lies in these posts, but sometimes you, I don't know, decide it is worth a fight, and sometimes you're like, there's no way that anything I say will have any impact or anyone will believe even. So yeah.
So in some way, it's the least important of all the feelings and the emotions you've gone through, but it's still reality. Share with us a little bit about trying to run your business the last 6 months.
Yeah, so as I said in the beginning of our call, I mean, we had big plans and we had big goals and big numbers that we wanted to reach, and we were really on track. And October, the month of October, obviously, there was absolutely nothing. The whole country was in shock. I mean, our business, although we do all languages, is mostly based in Israel, and Israeli firms are our main clients. And the attorneys who are the actual lawyers who are the actual customers were literally in Gaza, like were in reserve duty. They were not working. So business plummeted in October. November and December, like creeping back up. January, creeping. I mean, we took a huge hit. December was 25% of last year's December. So it's hard. I mean, we have so little energy to begin with everything that's literally surrounding us, that the amount of work it takes to just try to climb out of these numbers and this reality is really exhausting. I have to say, I've met amazing people and made amazing connections, and the vacuum that was created allowed for me to really do different things. But the company hasn't recovered fully yet, and we still don't know the extent of what will be. I know even the community, obviously the entire economy in Israel is really suffering, and the Social Security tried to give grants for some of those months to businesses that suffered, and I don't know if they've even finished paying what they promised they would pay. I think everything's really up in the air, and yeah, a lot of businesses are really dealing with a lot of challenges.
How do you deal with that emotionally? Did you have to lay anybody off?
I had that employee who was going on to maternity leave while her husband was in Gaza, and I had to decide whether I would replace her. I didn't know at the time whether I should just take the salary cut and save the money, not replace her. At the end of the day, I did hire a replacement for her, I was being optimistic, and I also didn't want to, put too much on the other employees who were already dealing with a lot. So we replaced her. I haven't had to let anyone go, thank God. I feel really lucky. But I mean, this month, to be frank, is we're operating at a loss. I hope it doesn't continue for much longer.
Is there any assistance? So if people go in the reserves to fight, do they get paid for their service or replacement?
Yeah.
Or how does it work?
Yeah, I wish I knew the full answer to that. People who go to reserve duty do get paid. I don't know if it's comparable to their regular salary. I know that they get help. I don't know the full answer to that.
So another question is, how does life, in other words, I know personally here in the States, I struggle because like as the war grinds on, as sad as it is, the reality is life also has to move on, and some of the urgency of the crisis loses focus.
Yeah.
And sometimes I see pictures, you guys share them in Tel Aviv, of people on the streets and they're shopping and this, and restaurants are full. And I know you and your husband took a little trip for a couple of days, which looked amazing. How do you reconcile the feelings of this war still going on, what, 100 miles away, 150 miles away? And yet life has to go on. How do you reconcile that?
Really complex. I very vividly remember the first time we went out for like a date night. It was, I think, probably December. And saying to my husband, I feel awful. I feel terrible that we're out here eating sushi and drinking wine when there's people who are fighting in Gaza and people who are suffering, and there's people who've been kidnapped and families without answers. I said, do you think that the soldiers would want us to be out here like having dinner while they're eating, whatever army food and they're fighting? And he said, I think that they would. And I kind of accepted that response. I listened to an amazing woman speak on Tuesday. Her husband was killed in battle in December, probably around the same time that I asked my husband this question, actually. And she was talking about him and what a wonderful person he was. It was Oriel Cohen, and she has 2 kids. She was on maternity leave when he fell in battle. And she said that one of the days that he had off from the army, he came back home and they went out, and he said, oh my God, there are so many people out. To be honest, that makes me really happy. This is what we're doing this for. This is why we're fighting. We want our country to be strong. We want our people to feel safe. So hearing her say that on Tuesday kind of was full circle for me. It was a bit of the permission that I needed to continue to try to enjoy, live life. When it comes to traveling, the airport specifically has done a lot of work to make sure you don't forget the situation. So as you're leaving, when you check in after you pass security on your way to the gate, they have pictures of every single hostage lining the entire walkway. So you're walking out of the country, so to speak, and you don't forget. And the same thing on the way back in. When you come in to, passport control, there's pictures of every single hostage, their name, their age, and the people who've also died. And so you remember it's it's hard to leave actually the country when you remember everything that's still going on.
Sure, and yet there's also, I don't remember in my lifetimes, Israel's been involved in different wars, but usually they've been pretty quick. I don't remember in my lifetime a war that's gone on this long, and it's a very difficult balancing act, right? So, and yet our responsibility, to your point, in a way, is to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And to keep the economy moving forward, and to be there for your kids and for the culture and this. And I don't know how you reconcile that in your mind.
I remember like when Gilad Shalit was, held hostage, the whole country thought, his face was on water tanks, and we thought about him every day. I stayed up all night watching him get released. I mean, I sobbed. It was like years of waiting for him to come back, and he finally came back. And I mean, it was an unbelievable moment. And then I think there's still 134 people who we don't know where they are, and we want them back. And the scale is impossible to accept and to really understand. It's just beyond comprehension.
Sarah, is there, if you think back in the last few months, what are some of the lowest, toughest moments?
The first week was the lowest moments. We couldn't get out of bed. I mean, we could not get out of bed. The numbers were climbing. We knew that the numbers were nowhere what the news was reporting. I mean, after we heard that the Nova Festival was attacked, they were saying 50 people dead. And we're like, 50 people dead. This is an enormous, enormous tragedy. No, and then, later that night, they would say it's 150 people dead. And they did this like slow, gradual climb of the numbers, and it was just torture because I think we knew how horrible it was, and the facts weren't like coming in quickly enough. We were confused. It was scary. I have a friend who's, has trauma. She can't be in a traffic jam. She's traumatized from the sites that, when the people tried to flee the Nova and they were sitting in traffic on that road, there were terrorists coming by in white pickup trucks just killing people. So she's scared to be in traffic. She says, I can't sit in traffic. I feel like I'm going to get murdered. I feel like I'm a sitting duck. I'm terrified of traffic. I mean, that's a very legitimate trauma to have, and it's really hard to move forward feeling like that. But to answer your question, the first week was really the darkest.
Yeah, have there been other tough moments since the first week that you can think about?
There have been a lot of moments of, I guess, self-doubt and like, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to get through this? It's the end of my business. Like I, had plans to scale and exit and this and that, and obviously no numbers are gonna, it's been 6 months of a different reality than what we were hoping for. So I think that might be a little bit hard to accept. But hard times have been really listening to people who've suffered, and I had a lot of friends whose husbands were fighting for the entire 5 months and didn't know where their husbands were, and trying to be there for them and watching them kind of work through that. It's hard.
I'm sure. And this question might seem sort of, but if there be some positive moments?
Yeah, so I would say after that dark week or two, the first 2 weeks, we really went into crazy logistics. What can we do? How can we help? I mean, it got crazy. My mom and my stepdad happened to be here for the holiday on October 7th, and then everything happened, and then we were in trauma, and then we became like a logistical operations center. My stepsister and like family, we raised $100,000. We started buying supplies, driving them around, dropping them off at people's houses. Like the country came together in a way to support everybody that was, I mean, I'll never forget it. Thousands of people, thousands of donations. I mean, it really was unbelievable. So I'll really never forget that. That was, that showed me a lot about the strength of the Jewish people and the support that we got from everyone else who was supporting us around the world. We really felt it. I really, really felt it. And of course, that the people that I met, who I would have never otherwise met. Yeah.
Sarah, just wanted to wrap up by sending love and thanking you. And I wanted to just tell you sometimes Sarah and I are in some WhatsApp groups together. And what is amazing, and for those who are watching who are not Jewish, in the Jewish tradition, we celebrate Shabbat from sunset on Friday night to sunset on Saturday night. And Sarah posts in our WhatsApp group, she bakes the most amazing challah bread for Shabbat that I can almost smell it.
Yeah.
My iPhone.
Yeah.
And sometimes you post a picture of your challah or a Shabbat meal that you've cooked, and you go offline for it. And you know, sometimes it strikes me here in the U.S., I don't stop for Shabbat. I don't keep it because I think I'm too busy. And yet, with all that chaos going on around you, and you've managed to keep that, and you bake challah and you have Shabbat, and I love that, and I just want to commend you for that.
Thanks. I
And
love Shabbat.
when I come visit you in Israel this summer, I'm expecting some challah.
You're gonna get a challah a day. I mean, I already started working, so there.
Oh no, it's got to be fresh. Okay.
Oh, right, good point. Okay.
Sarah, anything else you think is important to share?
Um, yeah, the one thing that I feel like I didn't really speak about enough is like the strength of the people in Israel. I look right and left and I see heroes all around me. I mean, and it's funny to say, you're a hero to people, but my friends who've been in the army, their wives, their families, people give so much. They do everything they can. They're so strong in the face of seriously unimaginable horror. And I'm proud of our country, and I'm proud of our nation, and I'm proud of everybody who's supporting us. It's really inspiring to see we're living in really historic times. And I feel privileged to live here in Israel. I would never have it any other way. So.
Sure, I want to offer you love and strength
Thanks, Ami.
and good challah.
Good challah always.